The Iowa Hawkeyes are just one Big Ten win away from another trip to Indianapolis and a Big Ten West title. We'll talk about the all-important Iowa-Nebraska Heroes game coming up this Black Friday. We'll talk about it in moments, but first want to thank our sponsors, Ascent Nutrition, their mold and mycotoxin-free coffee. Get your day started right. Don't pollute your body with the molds and mycotoxins that your name brand coffees contain. Most of those coffees, by the way, are treated with pesticides. Get yourself a bag of Ascent coffee at goascentnutrition.com. Use that code Hawkeyes at checkout for 15% off. And Iowa Floor Covering, their Tough Core Click Together 4.5 millimeter waterproof vinyl flooring, available at $269 per foot with self-installation. Visit iowafloorcovering.com/DIY. You are supporting a local company right in the heart of central Iowa, down in Bondurant. So the Hawkeyes and the Huskers this Black Friday, and it's an annual tradition in this rivalry. Of course, the Heroes Trophy at stake here, but the Hawkeyes have bigger fish to fry. A trip to Indianapolis, a chance to wrap up the West Division. Nobody expected Iowa to be in this position when they were 3-4, coming off a slobber knocking against Ohio State when they got beat by 40. Iowa turned the ball over, I think, 6 times offensively, got destroyed, bounced back against Northwestern. And as we went along, the competition got stiffer. Iowa found ways to win. Besides those first 2 games, Northwestern, Purdue, the other games, Wisconsin was close. I know there were a couple, it was a special teams play or two in there that made the score look more lopsided than it really was. Same with Minnesota, although Minnesota ended up being a 3-point game. But again, special teams and defense have been the calling card for the Hawkeyes all year in their wins. And even in their losses, these 2 units have been the storyline as far as keeping Iowa in games they probably didn't deserve to be in. Even the Michigan game, they struggled on the ground against Blake Corum, but found a way to hang around and give that offense a chance to make a push in the third quarter. And of course, they fell short. But that leads me into a brief look at Iowa-Nebraska this Friday. Of course, this game will be in Kinnick Stadium. A lot of fans writing this game off as a victory already. People beginning to think that Iowa's automatically into Indianapolis. This is going to be a tough game, folks. And I'll just tell you this right now. I'm not going to give you my pick at this moment. I'll release my picks tomorrow. Of course, I'm recording this on Tuesday, the 22nd. But what I'll say is this. Look out for Nebraska. I felt better about Minnesota than I do about Nebraska. Now, with that being said, I am not saying I'm picking Nebraska in this game. The Hawks have home field advantage. The one big storyline with these 2 teams, especially since Scott Frost took over, of course, he's not there now, but since he took over, Nebraska has routinely found ways to lose games. They were in every game last year and yet ended up at 3-9. Iowa was close in almost every game last year, ended up at 10-2. Big difference. Same this year. Of course, they parted ways with Scott Frost. Mickey Joseph has improved things a bit. I think culturally it seems like they're if improved, but still struggle to win these close games, and that's not going to change overnight. So if you're Iowa, you're okay with a close game, but certainly if it's close heading into the fourth quarter, fans are not going to be comfortable, and I think it's going to be close heading into the fourth quarter. We'll talk about specifics here in a moment, but let's reflect back on this series since Nebraska joined the Big Ten. Of course, they played in 2011 and won, played in 2012 and won. Iowa stole 1 in 13, but Nebraska won in 14. So Nebraska wins 3 of the first 4. Since then, the Hawkeyes have won every game since 2015, but the margins have been slim. 2015, the Hawks win by 8. 2016 and 17 were the only blowouts in Iowa's favor since that 2014 loss. Again, 2016, 2017, 2018 was a 3-point win, 2019 a 3-point win, 2020 a 6-point win, 21 a 7-point win. We've had a couple of kicks in there, game-winning field goals at the end. Miguel Racinos, Keith Duncan in on those game-winning kicks. And of course, 2 years ago, Zach Van Valkenburg made a big fumble, interception, whatever you want to call it. I don't know how it was quantified after everything was said and done. But Zach Van Valkenburg made a big play that kind of wrapped that game up. Last year, we know the Kyler Fisher play, the block punt return for a touchdown. Henry Marquez was involved in that as well. So Iowa has had success with special teams and defense, not only just throughout their season, but against this team in recent history. And no reason to think that will change this week. Last week, Nebraska was up big on Wisconsin. Wisconsin found a way to pull it off. So again, there is one way to look at it, and that is that if it's close, Iowa has won every close game in this series for the last 7-8 years. However, at some point, the law of averages, you would expect to, at some point, change, although Iowa seems to defy those laws of averages typically. So will that change this week? I don't know, perhaps. But, of course, Iowa does have home field, and they're playing for a championship or a division title, I should say. With that being said, Nebraska's playing with house money. They're not in contention for a bowl game. The only thing they can do, the only thing they have to play for is to spoil Iowa's chances at a title. And Mickey Joseph's not going to be the next head coach. So those players, I mean, they're not playing with any pressure at all. They can come into Kinnick, play free, play easy. Casey Thompson's been banged up, struggled last week. He's been dealing with an elbow hand issue with the throwing arm. I do think they're going to attack downfield. They should attack downfield. Teams have attacked, I think, primarily Cooper DeJean's side of the field, but I think they'd be wise with Casey Thompson's arm, if it's healthy, to attack Riley Moss's side of the field. I think that'd be something. I think that's something they need to do with Trey Palmer. If Casey Thompson can throw effectively, then you need to take advantage of whoever Trey Palmer is lined up against, and maybe that's Cooper DeJean. But expect them to take shots down the field. So can Iowa create pressure consistently? Can they contain Casey Thompson, because he is a mobile guy? He was terrific at certain points in this season. He just doesn't have a lot around him working. Certainly that Nebraska defense has holes. Will Iowa be able to run the football effectively? I think they will. I think they'll be able to run for 100 to 150 yards. This is not a good run defense for Nebraska. Will Iowa be able to throw the ball? Sam Laporta will not play. Kirk Ferentz confirmed that today. Luke Lachey will be tight end one. We'll see Addison Estringa, maybe even some Steven Stylianos. But Iowa's not done a good job getting the ball to wide receivers. 3 total completions for Iowa wide receivers this past weekend against Minnesota. Now, what about the other side? Can Iowa stop the run? They gave up, 250 yards to Ibrahim. The team lost the rushing battle by over 250 yards. Still won the game, but lost that battle by quite a bit. I think Iowa's defense will respond. All right, they will respond this week. Anthony Grant's a good back. In fact, one of his big games during conference play on the ground was against Minnesota, who held Caleb Johnson and the 2 Williams backs in check this past week in Minneapolis. So Grant is a talent, but I think Iowa will respond. Too resilient of a group. We know this whole team is resilient, but especially Phil Parker's guys, they will make plays and find a way to keep Grant in check. So it will come down to, I believe, who makes the big mistakes at big times. I would not be shocked to see Casey Thompson, if he's healthy, come up with a big play or two to Trey Palmer. And I would expect Iowa's run game to find a big play or two. So I think it'll be a little bit higher scoring than maybe these last 2 weeks. I know Iowa hit the 20s against Wisconsin. You have a pick 6 and you have 2 extremely short fields to work with, courtesy of special teams plays, a block punt and a big punt return. But I think this game could organically get into the high teens or 20s. That's not saying a whole lot. The over-under, I think, last check was like 37-38. So I think it'll be close heading into the fourth quarter. I think we're going to be in the high teens, maybe low 20s. I'm not going to give you an exact score prediction until tomorrow. But in that fourth quarter, folks, it's going to come down to what it typically comes down to in this rivalry. Who can make the big play defensively? Who can make the big play on special teams? One of those two areas of football, or both, I think that will determine who wins this football game. I am not extremely confident in Iowa winning, folks. I'm not saying I'm not picking Iowa. We'll save that for tomorrow, but I'm telling you this right now. I think fans are overconfident. I don't think that affects Iowa. This is not a trap game. Kirk Ferentz, they're playing for a division title. It's a rivalry game. Kirk Ferentz is going to keep his guys locked and loaded. But I think if Casey Thompson's healthy, this is a dangerous Nebraska offense. They've challenged teams at times. If he's not healthy, all bets are off, because I don't know what they're going to be able to do against this Iowa D. But we'll just have to wait and see. Big game on Friday, folks. I'll give you my picks tomorrow on Thursday, the 23rd. And we'll see what happens. Iowa's final regular season game on Friday, Black Friday, 3 p.m. Central Time on BTN And we'll have Iowa postgame with Coach Don Patterson later that evening. We've got basketball immediately following the football game. So a postgame show with Coach Patterson later in the evening, right here from the Hawkeye of the Storm.